Did you know lacrosse used to look like this? And the field used to be this big? And the players used to play with wooden sticks? Much has changed throughout the years. So how did we get here? Well, it all started 1,000 years ago when it was played by the Haudenosaunee, also known as the Iroquois, in modern-day upstate New York and Canada. The earliest version of lacrosse was played by Native American tribes as a way to settle disputes, heal the sick, and just have fun. That's why to this day, it's often referred to as the medicine game. Games could include 100 to 1,000 men playing against each other for days straight on a 2-mile field. They would use sticks made out of wood and balls made out of deer hide. There were no referees and no equipment, so let's just say the games could get a little violent. That's why the Onondaga community called it Dihansagways, meaning they bump hips, and the Mohawk community called it Tawartan, meaning little brother of war. Due to the spiritual nature of the games were often held near streams and rivers to facilitate cleaning rituals. Lacrosse was played from sunup to sundown with no stoppages in between, and the fields were laid out east to west, oriented with the path of the sun. Originally, the goals were selected before the game, either a rock or a tree, but eventually they developed wooden posts. The game began with a ball being tossed into the air and two sides rushing to catch it, kind of like a jump ball in basketball. But because there were so many players swarming the ball, it was difficult to move it upfield. Kind of like rugby. Now, if you thought eye black designs came from modern day lacrosse players, think again. Native Americans would decorate their body with charcoal and paint. They would perform pre-game rituals such as going to water, where players would dunk their sticks into a stream, and receive pre-game pep talks from a shaman. The lacrosse stick was made from a hickory tree representing plant life, and the pocket was made from sinew of deer representing animal life. Together, this represented the native people's connection to the natural world. After hundreds of years of playing lacrosse, the Europeans arrived in North America. When the French landed in 1630, they observed the Mohawk tribe playing lacrosse. The French named it lacrosse because the stick looked similar to a crozier, which is a staff that bishops carried. By 1740, most French colonists were playing the game. Fast forward to 1860, and French-Canadian William George Beers began codifying the first written rules of lacrosse. Things like the size of the ball, stick, pocket, goal crease were all being standardized by this guy, which is why he's often called the father of modern-day lacrosse. Sorry, Paul Rabel. He established the Canadian National Lacrosse Foundation and organized a team of Canadian players and Native American players to tour Europe and showcase the sport. Queen Victoria became impressed and said, "This game is very pretty to watch." As a result, many English schoolgirls adopted the sport in the 1890s. But college lacrosse was born when Manhattan College played NYU in 1877. By the 20th century, rule changes included less players on a team, shorter field size, and a game clock, which led to the adoption of lacrosse by thousands of universities and high schools. Lacrosse even became an Olympic sport in 1904 and 1908 Summer Olympics, but was then dropped as an official sport. The game will be making a return to the Olympics in 2028. In the 1930s, box lacrosse was born in Canada and quickly became the dominant version of the sport, because it's just so dang cold up there. But in the 1950s, the greatest lacrosse player of all time stepped onto the field. Jim Brown. And yeah, I'm talking about that Jim Brown. At Syracuse University, Jim Brown played 4 sports, and one of them was lacrosse. His senior year, he led the Orange to a 10-0 season and scored 43 goals and had 21 assists. He was awarded First Team All-American and Athlete of the Year at Syracuse. Putting up 64 points might not seem like a lot, but back then, it was. They only played 10 games, there was no shot clock, no equipment. It was pretty badass. Jim Brown was so athletic, he won multiple track and field medals and then scored 1 goal and 3 assists against Army in lacrosse in the same day. Jim Brown is now in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame and is often quoted as saying lacrosse is his favorite sport. But lacrosse really didn't start to gain traction until 1987 when the Eagle Pro Box Lacrosse League was formed, which eventually became the National Lacrosse League, the NLL. During this time, companies like STX and Brine started popping up to develop modern lacrosse equipment. In 1970, STX developed the first plastic head, and in the 80s, aluminum shafts and synthetic mesh came out, making the sticks lighter and more weather resistant. And by the 21st century, college lacrosse was in full force. Lacrosse was the fastest growing collegiate sport from 2003 to 2018. NCAA Final Four attendance exploded, with 50,000 people attending the Final Four games in 2007. That's a record that still hasn't been broken. And the game continued to evolve at the pro level when in 2001, Major League Lacrosse was founded as the first outdoor pro lacrosse league. But after 2 decades of limited growth and players only getting paid a few $1,000s to play per season, something had to change. So Paul Rabel, the superstar of the sport, said, "Screw it, I'm starting my own league." and he recruited all of the best players to join the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League. This was the new and improved version of pro lacrosse. And after a couple years of success, the PLL acquired the MLL, making for one dominant outdoor pro lacrosse league. And that brings us to today, where lacrosse is now played internationally in countries all over the world, such as US, Canada, England, Australia, and even Japan, and is still exploding in the US at the youth and high school level. Lacrosse equipment is more innovative than ever before, with super lightweight shafts, exotic looking heads, and oh yeah, Lax Farmer's brand new lacrosse apparel. T-shirts, hoodies, shorts, you name it, Lax Farmer just dropped the toughest looking lacrosse apparel in the game. So click the link below, go to shop.laxfarmer.com and pick up some apparel. If you want to help support the channel so that we can keep making videos, make new products, and keep growing the game for another 1,000 years. See you guys next time. Lax Farmer apparel.